This video is going to be a little bit different from the previous videos that I've been posting. This one is actually going to be a scary story that I want to tell. It has to do with, basically, I think I've mentioned in other videos, I'm an RN, and I work in the ICU. I've been an RN for 6 years, and I've been working in the ICU for the last 3 of those years. So, dealing with, and I work the night shift. So I work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And it's not unusual for patients to pass on during any shift, honestly. I don't think it matters. But there are definitely things that are expected, and I'm not easily creeped out by really anything, honestly. But there are definitely some things that have happened during my career that I feel like I can't always explain. And every nurse has these stories. We all see things and witness things that just go beyond science, beyond what we can explain. So yeah, stay tuned and I will share this story with you. Where to start with this whole thing? So I think I'll just start with when I got to work. So, I got to work. It was a normal night like it always is, and I got a report from the day shift nurse. And I was getting a patient that was really, really sick. They were so sick that they were actually on a CRT machine, which is called continuous renal replacement therapy. It's basically a machine that acts like the patient's kidneys for them. It's usually a machine that you end up on when you're in multi-organ failure. And so this patient really wasn't doing well. So bad that their organs were starting to malfunction and just shut down on them. And so we place people on this machine in order to keep that from getting worse and maybe even reversing this multi-organ dysfunction that the patient is starting to dive into. So they were on this machine. They were on a ton of different drips trying to keep the vital signs stable. This patient was actually so sick that they were my only patient for the night, which is not unusual when you've got a patient that's on a CRT machine. Our hospital will not allow that nurse to have other patients because clearly that patient's just really, really sick. And so they were on this machine, and when I got into the room, I remember the family was there, and I introduced myself to the family, and I, started my night. So as the night went on, this patient started to get really, really sick, and unfortunately, they became so sick that they weren't able to even tolerate being on the CRT machine anymore. Their vital signs were just getting way out of whack, and they had to come off the machine. So at this point, I can't remember everything, but I want to say around this time, the doctor spoke with the family, and they came up with, I think the doctor was just very, I guess blunt with the family. It was like, hey, your relative's not doing well. I don't think there's anything else we can do for them. At this point, I think you should just spend their last moments with them and just kind of stay with them because it looks like they may not even survive the night, which I totally was pretty clear. So at that point, we had decided we were going to turn off the CRT machine, and we were going to, I think, keep all the drips that they were on, and all these drips that these patients are on at this point. I mean, we're keeping their blood pressure going and their heart beating, basically. It's kind of sad, but we're just pumping them with medication to just keep everything going. And that might sound bad, but it's actually helpful for when families may be far away and they're trying to get there and they want to get there before their loved one passes. And so it's kind of something we do to kind of give the family more time to all get there, or maybe even kind of get their mind in the right space that, hey, I'm about to lose my loved one. Because it's hard. It's hard no matter what. We all know death is expected, but I think how it happens and when it happens is forever and always unexpected. So it's always really sad. Anyway, so that was what we were at. I think we were maybe around midnight or so. And we turned off the machine. The doc spoke with the family. The family understood that this patient wasn't going to get better at this point. And we actually made the patient a DNR, which means they were a full code, which means maybe we were going to do everything possible. And then we turned them into a DNR, which means we just weren't going to basically do chest compressions, which is, when you're that sick, it's a godsend to not do chest compressions on them, because that is just, it's not right. When you're that sick and you've got that much going on, the last thing your body needs is someone jumping on your chest. It's just not right. So I was really thankful for the patient and the family that they were able to come to the conclusion that they needed to be a DNR. It's just really helpful, I think, for the patient to just transition peacefully into the next realm, right? So anyway, so that's where we were. We stopped all the things. I want to say around, I don't know, but after midnight, I think the family came to me and they said they were like gonna go someplace. They were gonna go do something out in the family waiting room, or maybe talk to other family. I forget what they were gonna do, but they were gonna leave. And I was like, sure, yeah, whatever. Come back in 10 minutes or whatever. Take your time. It's no big deal. I go into the room just as they're walking out. I walk in the room and I look at the patient. I'm looking at the vitals. I'm like, oh, don't leave. I was like, your relative is about to pass. I think they're about to pass within the next 20 minutes. Like, if I were you, I wouldn't leave. I think this is the time. And they were like, really? So they go back in the room, and sure enough, within 10 minutes, the patient passed. So there was that. They passed, and the relatives stayed in the room with the patient for as long as they needed. We don't kick people out. We let them kind of do whatever they got to do. A lot of cultures require certain things, like they require certain prayers to be said, or they require like certain like rituals that they do. Whatever their religion requires them to do, we give them that space and time to do that. So once the family had their time with their loved one after they passed, they went home. So at this point, I want to say it was around, like 2 a.m. or something. And so that was that. So it's about 2 a.m. and it's time for me to do my postmortem care. I've already got the charge nurse, and this is not at all unusual. I think that night we must have been getting like slammed with admissions or something. And they were like, the charge nurse was like, I know you just lost the patient, but we've got a line of patients already coming up here, so you're gonna have to wrap this up. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. I will do what I gotta do. I will be, done, and I'll be ready to get the next patient as usual. So anyway, I wanted to start my care, and I had to leave the room and go get a few things and come back. And so that's what I did. I went and got a few things, and I come back to the room, and the lights were off. And I thought that was the strangest thing I've ever seen, only because I certainly didn't turn off the lights. I was in the middle of doing 1,000 things. I didn't have time to turn off all the lights. And when I say all the lights, I mean all the lights. Like, let me tell you, these rooms have like 3 different spots for lights. And I'm pretty sure I had on all the lights, because anyway, there's so much going on. I had on all the lights. And so there's a light in the back of the room. There's a light in the front of the room by the door. And there was even like a light switch behind the bed. And they were all turned off. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. And I thought, well, I guess maybe someone came in here and turned off the lights. Like, I don't know who would do that, though. Like, I can't imagine another nurse doing that. So I thought it was really odd. But I just let it go and walked into the room, this dark room with my expired patient on the bed. I walked into this room, and I go to flick on the light. And I turn it on, and out of the peripheral of my vision, out of my periphery, I see something that is dark, that I felt like the light, illuminated the whole room except for this one spot right there. And I thought it was so weird. It's just sitting in my peripheral. So of course I look, There's nothing there, but it was just weird that there was just this one spot that kind of felt like it didn't light up with the rest of the room. So I ignored that. Wasn't about to investigate. So I go ahead and keep doing what I'm doing. I am getting ready to get my patient all together and doing all the things that I gotta do. And while I'm working, I hear something fall behind me. And then I hear something else fall. And so I'm turning around and I'm trying to see what's going on behind me. And I see it's, we have all kinds of crap that we kind of put up on like, the window ledge. And so maybe it was like a pillow, and I forget what it was, like maybe a blanket. But a couple things fell off that window sill. It's not a big ledge anyway. And I was like, oh, okay. So I walk over and I put the pillow someplace else, and I put the blanket back on the ledge, and I was like, whatever. And as I'm putting things back up on these, just putting things off the floor, I'm still noticing all of a sudden that it's just like a dark spot almost, just kind of creeping back up in my periphery, except this time it's not like in the corner of the room, it's like right next to my head, because I'm like standing next to the spot where I saw it to begin with. So I'm sitting here and I'm seeing it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, why am I standing next to the spot that I saw that dark spot at, that dark image at? And I turn and I look, and it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. There's nothing there. But I was like, you know what? I need to get my eyes checked. It was probably night 2, maybe it was night 3 in the ICU. I probably was just exhausted, and my vision was just acting up. So I get out of that little spot though, go back to my patient care, my postmortem care, and I'm trying to get this done. I eventually a patient care tech, we call them PCTs. They're kind of like nurse aides, but they come in and they kind of help us just do random things that we need help with. And so she came in the room with me and she was helping me out, and I was like, oh, I forgot this or whatever. So I leave the room real quick to grab something, and I come back, and when I come back, the patient care tech was now at the same corner of the room, and she was picking up something off the floor, I think that stupid blanket or something that fell on the floor. She was standing there picking it up and putting it someplace else. And I was like, what are the chances that that stupid thing fell again? Well, no, okay, so the chances are not high. The chances are high that the stupid thing will fall again. But that stupid thing in the corner of the room, I didn't see it next to her. I didn't see it out of my peripheral that time. But all I could think was I felt like it was just calling. I felt like it was calling people towards it in a sense. And so, hurried up and finished up my care. Called security to come take the body downstairs to the morgue once we were done. Because that's our protocol. That's what we do. And that was that, right? So I thought that was a weird little occurrences in the room, but I really just kind of put them out of my mind. So fast forward to maybe, I don't know, like 5 a.m. or something like that. I already had a new admission, and they were in that room. This was after, of course, housekeeping came, and they did clean the room. They do an excellent job cleaning our rooms, and they, the charge nurse called like a stat clean on this room, of course, because we were getting slammed with admissions. And so the room got cleaned immediately, and I already had a new patient sitting in the room by 5 a.m. And I don't remember much about this patient either. I know that they were there because of altered mental status. I remember that, and the only reason I remember that is because I stepped out of the room for whatever reason. I was coming back into the room, and I froze at the door because the patient is sitting in the bed, and they're staring hard, like a dead stare, at the same corner of the room where I originally saw that dark shadow just a couple hours ago. And so, because this patient was admitted into the same room. And so, that kind of, my heart sank a little bit when I saw that, because I was like, why are they staring over there, of all places to look? And so, I quickly walk into the room, and I grab my patient's attention. I'm like, hey, how are you? What's going on? And they look at me with a startle. And they're like, I thought you were standing over there. And I was like, no, ma'am. No, I'm not standing over there. I was outside the room. I just walked in. And they're like, and they're looking in the corner and they're like, okay, I'm going crazy. There's no one there. No one was there. And I'm like, and I wanted so badly to be like, what did you see? But to be completely honest, I didn't want to know what they saw. And plus, day shift was about to show up. And I just did not have the time to jump down that rabbit hole with them. I wanted to get out of there. At this point, I just wanted to go home. So I didn't ask any questions. I was just like, yeah, I'm sure you did see something in that corner, but we're not going to dive into that right now. I just kind of pressed on and did what I got to do, gave medications and gave report to day shift and didn't mention anything about dark shadows in the room and just kind of let that be. Now, I cannot remember. I don't think I came back that night. I want to say that it was like, I know I didn't come back that night. I came back probably later that week or something. But unfortunately, that room developed a reputation right after the episodes of me seeing whatever it was in that room, me and the patient honestly seeing whatever it was we saw in that room. Right after that room had a series of unfortunate events where a couple patients had coded in that room. Other patients passed away in that room. It was just like, and this happens everywhere. This is not unusual, actually. Every ICU, I'm sure every nurse will tell you, if you ask a nurse that works in the hospital, so which room is the room that nobody wants to be in at work right now? And they'll have a room for you. There's always a room. There's always the room, whether, this week it may be room 14, next week it might be room 12, the following week it's room 20. It changes, but there's always a room. And after I started seeing that dark shadow in that room, that was the room where we kept kind of having just horrible occurrences happening. Not horrible, just things that don't set well with you, I guess, is the best way to put it. And then eventually it was another room. Anyway, I've lost lots of patients. And I've done postmortem care in the middle of the night. I've done that many times, and I will continue to do that many times. That doesn't bother me. I've never been, creeped out or concerned, or I don't mind doing postmortem care by myself at night at 2 a.m. I do not care. But I've never had that occurrence where I kept seeing something in the corner of a room, and then a patient was seeing something in the corner of a room. That's unusual. That I don't always see. And so, I don't know what to make of that. Anyway, that's one of my stories of being an ICU nurse and doing post-mortem care in the middle of the night. It's usually very uneventful, except this one time. And I prefer uneventful post-mortem care moments in the middle of the night in the ICU. Anyway, I hope that story was at least a little interesting to you. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.